Ladies and gentlemen, the Aussies have a penchant for producing rather gritty action flicks. The problem is that most times they concentrate on the grit, they really ignore characters and plot. Tonight's lesson plan is perfect proof as cinematic class is about to begin and your professor is in. Greetings, salutations, another sundry affair. I am your cinematic professor and purveyor of truth in movies, and tonight's lesson plan is a film called Badland Rising, and it comes to us from the fine folks at Saban Films. Saban has been importing a lot of Australian action films as of late. This is the latest in their cache, and it's all about a former soldier who is now working in construction. And he's doing that in order to save his family's farm, which is a little bit underwater as far as debt is concerned. Now, he's had a job out of the city for a while, and he's very eager to return home to his wife and son. But his homecoming is somewhat derailed when he inadvertently becomes entangled in a very bloody aftermath of a botched mob robbery. Now, while trying to be safe and escape during all this chaos, Dave, our hero, unknowingly acquires a bag full of mob money. And this makes him the target of a syndicate of ruthless criminals.
Hey, babe.
I'm done. Love you guys. I'll be coming home.
I'm taking your car.
The deceased is one gang member connected to the Russians.
There's been a bit of a mix-up. I've ended up with something that belongs to some pretty dangerous guys.
We have some business to discuss.
Where is my money?
We don't have your money.
But we know who does.
There is.
So who is this fucking guy?
He's ex-military.
I'm gonna fix this.
You understand? That's not our money. These Russians will kill your family.
How'd you talk about my family?
Hey, let's take a little look now. The people in front of the camera, and for Australia, this is a pretty impressive cast. Jake Ryan plays Dave Shepard, our protagonist. Jake's recent work includes the feature film Kane, more on that a little bit later. He has performances in Life After Fighting, Take My Hand, which he starred in alongside Radha Mitchell. She is another one of the Australian action films. I just did a review on her latest movie. You can check it earlier in the posts. And his next movie due to come out is another action thriller called Fear. Probably better known even to American audiences is Nathan Phillips. He plays Morgan in the movie. He was a regular on the sci-fi series Hunters. It's a pretty decent series. He also starred in Primitive War, and Primitive War is going off the block. I just heard that Creative Beast Studios is about to make figures, both articulated and statues, on the Primitive War dinosaurs. That should be real interesting. And he was also in Netflix's War Machine, which was a fairly decent action flick and is due for a sequel. And finally, Steve Morzakis plays Mitch Green. He's probably best well known as the cult leader Xandor Dabo. If you remember back to the indie horror film Late Night with the Devil, that one even caught the eye of some of my fellow Critics' Choice Association members. You may also have seen him in the movie Darkness Falls and I, Frankenstein with Aaron Eckhart. That was an offshoot of Frankenstein that I really enjoyed. Okay, let's take a look a little bit behind the camera. And Blair Morant is probably the impetus for this entire film. He directed the movie, and he also wrote it along with a little help from Drew Brown. The scripting is where this movie stumbles a bit. We'll get to that just a little bit later. Blair is an Australian filmmaker, well known in the land down under. His films not only include this Badland Rising, but most recently Kane. And if you recall, that's the movie that Jake Ryan also starred in. So these guys have kind of worked before and they knew each other. The reason he's an interesting character behind the camera is because before getting into feature films, his entire experience in production was in producing live combat sports events. So his action scenes are worthwhile. They're good. Again, it's the story behind it where it kind of gets just a little bit sketchy. Helping me out on this is editor Steph Licorice. You know, I mentioned Steph back when I did the review for Rhoda Mitchell's Seven Snipers, which was just a few weeks ago. So again, it is down below in the listings if you want to check it out. Steph does a really good job. She did it in Seven Snipers, and she does a nice job in putting this one together as well. You know, I have a tendency to be very critical of editors, but Steph has really come to the forefront, and for action films, I think she's demonstrated that she handles these very, very well. This movie is well paced, and probably that's one of its biggest assets. Our director of photography for this movie is Tim Carr. You know, the Aussies want very badly, and you could tell by watching this movie that they want the Jake Ryan's character, Dave, to have a strong enough performance in this that he can be a continuing character, and hopefully they can make a franchise out of his exploits. Certainly, the story script leaves a lot of room for follow-up tales. You know, but viewers, especially here in America, are going to see him as kind of an Alan Ritchson Reacher type of clone and knockoff, and not quite as impressive. I said in the teaser intro that the Aussies, a lot of times in their action films, accent the grit of the action and ignore the character and the storyline. A lot of Dave's character is just really brushed over very lightly. You don't get into any real depth as to, you know, why he is promoted to do the things. Very superficial touching on this. And as a result, it's easy to get wrapped up in the action. It's difficult to get wrapped up in the actual character itself. And therein lies a lot of the problem. Audiences are going to find the character of Dave Shepard probably a little bit too lame and maybe a little bit too inconsistent. So if the writing improves on this, and Jake needs to put a little more impetus into his portrayal, well, then they might have a little something, and Dave Shepard might gain a little bit of depth and consistency. If that happens, this could be a pretty decent franchise for Australian production action films. If not, it's another action film that is worth a look and then just a toss away. And now that you have learned what you have learned, here ended your lesson.